Hello there, and welcome to the last video in the Java Basics course here on the Future Programmer YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to wrap up Chapter 5 of this course, Object-Oriented Programming, by making a contacts database project where you will get to practice your knowledge about classes and objects. Without further ado, let's get started. So before we start writing any actual code, let's first think about what we want to do in this program. I have opened a Java file, contacts-database.java, where I'll be writing this program. Feel free to write your code anywhere you would like. So let's first write a few comments about what we want to do in this program. We'll be writing a contacts database program. So this is going to be some sort of contacts directory. We'll be keeping track of a list of people, like maybe our friends or maybe family, and we'll be keeping track of their contact information. So for each contact, we'll be storing things like the name, let's say what about the phone number, and let's just add in the email address of a certain individual. And then we'll be collecting a few contacts and putting them inside of one database. So this database is going to keep track of multiple contacts. So we'll be storing, let's say, all our friends or all our family members in one database. So we can also search for a contact in a database. We want to look for a friend whose name is Joe or something like that. So we'll be needing two classes in this program, three if you count our test code, our driver code. So the first one we need is probably our contact class. So our contact class is going to be storing the name and the number and the email and such. So let's just write class contact. It's going to have, let's see, we need three instance attributes. Let's just make them private. So private string name, private string email, private string number, like this. So these are the three instance attributes that we'll be storing inside of one contact. And we'll need to assign values to these instance attributes in a public constructor. So let's do that. So that's not how I spell string. So string name. Let's do the email and let's do the phone number. And we just need to assign values to our instance attributes. So like this. So now we have three instance attributes, name, email, and number, corresponding to our, contact's name, email, and phone number, and we're assigning values passed in through the constructor to these three instance attributes. So now we need to provide, let's see, do we need to provide getters? Probably. When we want to search for a contact in a database, we'll need to access these private instance attributes. And because right now these are all private, we'll need to use getters to access them. But I don't think for this project, at least how I have thought about it, we don't need to have setters. If you want to add them, feel free to do that. So let's just write public string get name, and this will return. Actually, let me just write this on one line since the implementation is not that important. So return this.name. And we'll need to do the same for our email. We need to make sure this is a lowercase. This will also be the same for our phone numbers. So we have these these methods defined in our contact class. Let's just, why don't we just test this code? Let's make sure it works. So class contacts database. Database. And in our driver code, we need a main method. And let's just make a new contact. So let's say contact C is equal to new contact. Let's pass in the name of Joe, like I said before. Let's just try some random things. Let's try A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Actually, that's a long email address. So just say joe@joe.com. The phone number, let's just do 1, 2, 3 for now. Why not? And let's just print out c.getName. So we're creating an instance of the contact class called C with name Joe, email address joe@joe.com, and number is equal to 1, 2, 3. Very weird number, but whatever. And then we're calling the getName instance method right here, which will return this dot name. So we're returning Joe. So we should get Joe when we run this program. And we get Joe. Perfect. Cool. So let's take a look at what else we need to do. So that's pretty much all we need in our contact class. Actually, why don't we add another method? Let's add another method that we haven't really talked about, but I think it's pretty important to know about. Let's just add a method called, this may be pretty new, but let's just take a look at what this will do. So let's add a method called toString. Now, if you remember earlier when we were talking about inheritance, we talked about how all the Java classes that you'll ever write are implicitly or explicitly inheriting from the object class one way or another. So in the object class, there is a method called toString, which will basically return a string that is a textual representation of an instance. So this is basically a way how we can print out some information about a class just by putting it, or about an object just by putting it in a print statement. You'll see how it works in a second. So let's just return something. Let's just return this dot name. Let's just add a pipe here, this dot email, and then let's just add this dot, not name, number. So we have this toString method, which will return a string that contains some information about an instance of the contact class. So here, instead of writing c.getName, let's just write c. Now, normally if we just put c inside of a print statement, let's take a look at what will happen then. If I don't have this, let's comment it out. We get contact at this hash code. What this is saying is this is a contact instance. This is an instance of the contact class at this memory location on our computer. Or I think it's maybe not the memory location, maybe it's the hash code, is an identification value for an instance. However, if we have the toString method like this, we'll see Joe, joe@joe.com, 1, 2, 3. So this is pretty useful because we can now define how an instance is represented when we print it out. So that's how the toString method works. It will return a string. And yeah, that's pretty much all we need in the contact class. Now let's take a look at a class, the other class that we need, which is the database class. So let's write the database class like this. So class database, private. Let's see, what do we need in the database class anyway? So why don't we have a string that is the name of the database? So let's just label our databases. So string name. This can be friends, it can be family, it can be relatives, it can be acquaintances, whatever. And then let's just write private. We need to keep track of a list of contacts. So let's just do this using array lists. So array list contact like this. Contacts is equal to a new array list. And then it will be storing contacts like this. And we'll need to actually import java.util.arraylist. Cool. So now we have two instance attributes. Now let's just provide a constructor for the name. So constructor database string name, and this dot name will be equal to name. And let's make a database. Let's get rid of these two lines. So database, let's say friends, is equal to a new database. And let's just pass in the name of friends. We have nothing inside, so this is just all we can do for now with this database. Now we want to add contacts into our database system, so let's add a method for that. So let's just write public void add contact, and let's just add in contact C. And notice how contact C, this is a parameter to a method, so we can pass in objects of our own into an instance method or any method. And here we can just do, what do we call our list? We call it contacts. So contacts, just to make it clear, it's not necessary, but let's just add this dot contacts dot add C. So we're calling this array list dot add and let's throw in a contact value C into this array list. So let's take a look. Okay, that's all we need for now. Let's just do some things with the add contact. So friends.add contact, we need to throw in a contact. Now we need to throw in the add contact method. We need to add a contact. So we need to make a contact first. So new contact. Let's just make up some random names. Hopefully not real people. Let's add in some random email addresses. Whatever, some numbers. Probably not the right length for any country, but yeah, this is all good. Let's just add some other email addresses. Feel free to add in real people if you want to model some things on your own. That's also perfectly fine. Let's just make all of these 10 characters. That should be good. So let's just add 3 people. I think that's enough to see if this works. Okay, let's just add another phone number. Cool. So this should all work. Now, how can we see whether these are actually added to our friend's database? Let's just print out something that will show it. And for that, we can add a toString method to our database. So how we can do that is, let's just add this. So string toString. Notice the S here is capitalized. That's important. The S right here. And then it will take no parameter once again. And it will, let's just do, how can we return some value that will represent not only the name of the database, but also the contacts that have been added to this database. So let's just write in a string. So this string will currently be empty, and we will add information to this string and then return it at the end. So return s. Now before that, let's just add first of all this .name, so the name of the database. And then for each contact C in this .contacts, we will do s plus equal to, let's do a new line. So we have the name and then we have a new line. And then let's just add a space and then let's add C. So C, this will be the toString. This will be the string representation of the contact added to a new line character. So now if I do this, so friends like this, we'll see friends, we have Jared, we have Aiden, and we have Mark. Now something else though, we have, these are not aligned perfectly. So we have sort of a not aligned properly issue, I guess. So why don't we just add, so instead of the spaces here, let's just add a \t. See if that fixes the issue. Okay, perfect. So now we have a tab inserted after the name and after the email address, which fixes the issue. Cool. Now, what else do we need? I said earlier that we're going to add methods to search through a database and look for an individual with a certain email or with a certain name or something like that. So why don't we just do that? Let's do it after add contact. So public, we'll be looking through our array list, finding a contact that matches the information that we're looking for, and then we'll be returning that contact. So we'll be returning a contact. Let's just say this is called find by name. Takes obviously a string name, and we'll do this. So for each contact C in this .contacts, we'll check is c.getName. So if the name of the contact is equal to the name we passed in, so this is the name we passed in. If that is true, then we'll say we'll return C. Now, I think right now, if we're just gonna write this, I think we'll actually get an error. Let's just try this. Yep, so we need to have a return statement if none of these matches. So let's just return null, because that will solve this issue. So right now, the issue is the fact that, or without this, the issue is that we may return C, or if none of the records match, if none of the contacts in our database has a certain name, then we will not return anything. But we said this method will return contact, so we must return something. So let's return null, which is basically saying that there is nothing that matches the name passed in. So in our driver code, we can look through our database. So let's just do this. Let's print a new line just to make sure we can see what is what. So friends dot find by name. Let's look for an individual called Aiden. Oops, that's not what I meant to type. Cool. So we get Aiden, Viola guy at chess.com, and random phone number. So we're able to return information or the contact information of someone whose name is Aiden in our friends database. And let's just add the same for email addresses as well as phone numbers. We just duplicate this. We just need to change these two to be email, this to be email. That should be good. And this should be changed to be number. Same with these. Cool. So now we can just do the same here. So this should be email, and this should be number. Now let's just put a random email. Why don't we just put in this email right here? Oops. Put it here, and we need a phone number, so let's just do this. Now I have this here. So we get Aiden, Jared, and Mark, and we see that indeed looking through our database does give us the right result when we run this program. So we have achieved the objectives that we gave ourselves when we started writing this program. So we have two classes. We have a contact class that stores information about an individual's contact information, and we have a database class that stores a list of contacts, and we provide the methods to add new contacts and also to find contacts by name, by email, and by number. And we also added the toString methods to both of our classes. This is something new. We haven't done this before, but this is a great way to print out information about an instance. Now, let's just copy this code, and I'm going to throw this into the online Java editor from Replit. I do have to change this to main because I believe Replit uses the main.java file. So running this code, we should see the same result as we did earlier in our local computer. And we indeed do. So that's the end of this video. Now, there's a lot that you can improve on this program. For example, we have a way to add contacts, but we don't have a way to remove a contact. For example, by name or maybe by email. So that's one of the things that you can think about to add to the functionalities of this program. I hope that you have found this video to be helpful to practicing object-oriented programming using classes and objects in your Java program.
And so now we have reached the end of this video as well as the Java Basics series. I hope that throughout this entire course, you were able to learn a thing or two about the Java programming language and expand your interest in coding. If you want to learn more about computer programming, please consider subscribing to this Future Programmer channel down below, where I plan to continue posting programming content in the future. With that said, thank you very much for taking this journey with me, and happy programming!